What if I told you the Nuggets went into Milwaukee in the middle of a road trip and no one missed a three ever? This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us part of your day and making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. If you love the show and you want to support us, the best way for you to do that is to head on over to the YouTubes. Go to YouTube and search for Locked On Nuggets and find us and subscribe. Give us a like, turn on notifications. You can join the show, chat with the good folks in the chat section. It's always a lively event night after night. You can do that. And that's the best way for you to support us in our endeavors.
My name is Matt Moore. Matt said we'd get 1,000. I said 2,000. So I'm now hoping for at least 1,501. So I can be more right than Matt. Help me be more right than Matt.
More right than me. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network and the Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver. He's Adam Mares. He is the director of content for DNVR. The DNVR.
Matt, if you're wondering how Nuggets fans are feeling after this win, maybe the comment section is a window into the mind frame of Nuggets fans.
Zamora is here. Zamora is here with How's It Feel to cover the 2022 NBA champions, fellas. Popping off. All right, so we're coming to you on Sunday night after the Nuggets get best win of the season.
Oh, no question. And it was a really good win. It would be the best win in, or at least up there in most seasons, but the Nuggets just don't have that many good wins this year. And this one was. Like, I try to poke a hole of okay, why was Milwaukee bad tonight where they're not on a back-to-back. They had their three best players. They really had most of their role players. I don't think there's a legitimate excuse for Milwaukee. This was, they should have been better.
I don't have an excuse. I don't have an excuse. I have a reason. About the tactical stuff that we can get into as we kind of get into the game. The Nuggets get the victory 136-100, broke this game open in the second half. We will talk about the bench and what they're accomplishing and get Adam's thoughts on the Bone show with the second unit. We will talk about Jokic and his incredible, superfluous amazingness and all of that, as we always do. We'll talk later in the show about him getting selected to the All-Star game, which I forgot to do in the last episode. My bad. And we'll talk about how the West playoff picture has tightened and how it's shaping up. As we kind of have talked about, continues to shape up well, knock on wood, for the Denver Nuggets. We'll do all that. But first, let's start with this, Adam. The Nuggets tonight in Milwaukee shoot 23 of 43 from three-point range, 53.5%. Aaron Gordon hits 4 threes. Monte Morris hits 4 threes. Bones Hyland hits 3 threes. Will Barton hits 2 threes. Jokic hits 2 threes. Bryn Forbes hits 2 threes. Everybody hit a 3, and it wasn't just like throwing up shots. It was because they got such incredible rhythm offensively.
That's my word of the day is rhythm, and it's not my word. The Nuggets were using it a lot in their last press conference, just kind of talking about how they felt like they were getting one. But tonight, I mean, yes, guys made shots, Matt. In this league, it's very simple sometimes. Like when you shoot 53% from 3 on volume, you probably win. I mean, I don't know how many teams have lost when they do that. But I just thought that it was the shot making, but it was also just the way they moved the ball, the way they were in sync. This was a team that I'm not at all surprised Jokic had 15 assists tonight. They were all moving in the right timing, the right spacing, and just playing off of him so well, and playing with a confidence. Kind of just looked like the ball was popping. And I think that they are gaining some momentum. I don't want to say that the Nuggets are back, although it certainly seems like they're back. But I just think that they're gaining confidence and gaining a rhythm that they have not been afforded the opportunity to do up until this point.
The lineups make a lot more sense. The ball is moving much better. The players, I noted this in the Pelicans game, that I felt like they played with a lot of energy in that game. Like the results weren't flawless, but I felt like they played with physicality, with energy. They were moving. Like Aaron Gordon tonight was pushing the ball, especially after he thought he got fouled by Giannis. Like Monte Morris's pace was really good. They played with decisiveness. They weren't just like dribbling and being like, let's pass over here. And like, okay, maybe over. Like they were
on the team. Yeah.
They were in attack mode, and you haven't, to be honest, like we have not seen that a lot this year. As good as their offense has been overall in terms of like not being, horrific, this was the first night that it was like, oh, like this looks like what a Nuggets team is kind of supposed to look like with Jokic. And some of that, I think, is the improved spacing. You hit threes and things look a lot better, but they were just a step ahead of the Bucks all night long.
And even on both ends of the court, I thought their defense was in lockstep with each other for the most part tonight as well. And I mean, I know it's silly, Matt, but it's not a coincidence that starting lineup with Jeff Green and Monte Morris, Will Barton, Aaron Gordon, Jokic, that lineup is among the best in all of the NBA, 5-man lineups. So I don't think it's a coincidence. And we saw that. The other ingredient of this was the bench had been as bad in fewer minutes as the starters have been good. And at least tonight, and really over this extended win streak, it looks like they're starting to figure some things out. Some of that's key decision making, which, by the way, Malone doesn't usually change up who plays when the team is on a roll. So I think it's very notable that the second unit has made a big change here. And this is what happened. Like, we've seen games where the Nuggets starters were plus 20 across the board, and it was a 5-point win or 5-point loss. Tonight, the bench was also a plus, and that's what you get, a 36-point win.
Yeah, and I mean, look, it's weird because like last game they were like a small minus, and this game they were a huge plus, and it's like the small minus is fine.
Totally.
Like on the previous episode, like it's fine. You just gotta not be minus double figures. That's it.
Right.
That's all you gotta do. That's all the bench has to do. We'll talk about like the improved dynamics, I think, in the second segment, but with the starters just consistently being this good, and it really is honestly a testament to that starting unit. And again, I gotta stress this. Like, look, Aaron or AG was hitting the threes tonight, right?
Yep.
And those aren't always gonna fall. I will say I liked where he was getting shots from. I liked where the Nuggets were getting all their threes from. They ran that post up weak side back screen action like 7 times, and the Bucks were just not wise to it. The Bucks never figured out like we should probably switch the back screen. Like that's a thing that we should probably do. Like they just never figured it out. And they found all of those. They weren't deep corner threes. They were shallow corner threes, but that spot was really good. And actually I like when Aaron Gordon shoots from there. I don't have the numbers on it. But they got quality looks from a bunch of guys in that scenario. Yeah, I mentioned, you talked about how like the excuses for the Bucks. I don't think it's an excuse because the Bucks have all like they have more guys than the Nuggets have, and they still have their MVP and Drew and all these guys. The absence of Brook Lopez I thought was huge just because like they didn't have any rim protection. They had nothing on the weak side. Nothing on the weak side.
He's
Nothing.
obviously a huge loss, but he's lost. I mean, he hasn't played at all this year. And yeah. I don't know. He had a back surgery, right? It's like similar to Michael Porter, where allegedly he will be back, but it's probably going to be late in the season, and he's a big wild card. Which, by the way, affects when you talk about the Bucks. Like, he's a big piece of what makes them really good.
Yes, they had such problems with the duck-ins tonight. Like, they put AG or J Mike in dunker spot, and the Bucks were just constantly like, "We got to stay home." But they're also back screening on the weak side. Like, they just could not get comfortable. I also don't understand why they kept letting Drew get matched up on Jokic. Did not understand that at all.
Yeah, a lot of that. No, I know I don't. It was really strange, but
it wasn't even a switch. Like, because I kept noticing, I was like, why is Drew constantly on Joker?
Well, here's what I will say. I do think the best defense for Jokic is to double him with size. And one way to double him with size is to use your size players off of him. So, like, if you send a double with a smaller guy, Jokic's so tall, he's so patient, he's so strong with the ball, he throws it, he gets the angles. If you throw Giannis at him and Giannis gets his hands up, in theory at least, it should, like, disrupt the passing lane and make for more tip passes. But tonight, Jokic was special. I mean, he's special most nights. But tonight against a very good team, he was – the opening quarter of this game for Jokic was like an all-timer. It was really one of his best, even though the numbers aren't – I don't know if these numbers are not impressive or what, but he had 6 points and 8 assists in the first quarter. That's a special. He was just special, man.
Yeah, that whip pass, the touch whip pass inside, that was
ridiculous.
I watched that one like 7 times because that's still one of those where I still don't understand the ability to make that read that quickly, even if he knows it's coming. To be able to just like grab and throw the ball that quickly. I'm just like, God, that's such a quick play and perfectly on target, like not high, not low, doesn't skip at the knees, doesn't have to reach for it. Just bam. Perfect. just absolute perfection. It was an incredibly dominant performance from the Nuggets. And, we said what we said. We came into this being like, 2-4 on the road trip might be realistic.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And look, they got the Nets one. The Nets got hit and hit again and hit again. But, now they've got the Wolves and the Jazz to finish up. And if they split those and they go 5-1, that's an exceptional road trip. And we talked about how there was an opportunity for them in the back half of the season to gain momentum. We literally passed the 41 win mark or the 41 game mark. And now they're surging and, long way to go, but this is they are building momentum with the new guys. They're building momentum they're getting, Barton tonight looked the best that he's looked in months. That was a phenomenal game.
And also this was a game where the team had it going. Jokic is great every night. And we're going to talk obviously about Bones and the impact he had on that second unit in the next segment. But this was a game where everyone kind of had it going and nobody messed with that. Sometimes when it's 5 guys have it going, one of them says, I have it going, and Push is no, tonight you just kept going. The machine kept churning until the end of the third quarter when the game was over.
I thought Will's play with Jokic was really good. His entry passes, he was very focused on getting the ball to Jokic early and not messing around. I thought Monte was great in pick and roll. And when they started being okay, we got to cover Jokic with 2, Monte's I'm taking the floater. If you're going to give me the floater, I'm taking it and hitting it. That's huge. And then the development in the past 2 months of Jokic and Gordon's two-man, their connection has been incredible. They have learned so much about playing with one another, and the trust that is there is apparent. There is no frustration between the two of them. There is an understanding between the two of them. For the most part, I think AG does what Jokic is looking for him to do, and rewards him on the other end with defense. Again, this was just not a flawless performance, but it's about as close as it's going to get versus the Bucks.
They have now that starting lineup that we mentioned. They have a plus 15.8 net rating on the season, which includes a 126.2 offensive rating. That's in 382 minutes. That's a good sample size for 5-man lineups. It is good. I think we have enough of a sample size to just say that's a really good lineup, and it's wild because they really are missing 2 guys. One guy in particular, and Jamal Murray, that no question makes this lineup better. And then another guy in Michael Porter, who at his best certainly makes the offense better, which is already at 126. So to me, I'm very encouraged, honestly. This last week and a half has been a very encouraging week and a half for the Nuggets, not just because they win, but you get to this point, I know we'll talk about this later, but you get to this point in the season and you're 28-21. That's actually that's better than I think I probably would have guessed if I just was all things considered coming into this year.
Let's take a break. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the bench, and we'll get Adam's thoughts on that because I really wanted to get his thoughts on that.
Most interesting part of the game to me, for sure.
The new look bench is definitely arrived. We'll do that when we come back. But first, I have to tell you about Built Bar. It's a new year, so everybody's got their New Year's resolutions. I've been on it. I'm trying to get healthy. Got my treadmill. Been on it 5 days a week. It's been awesome. But you get hungry and you need something. And that's when you turn to Built Bar because it tastes like a candy bar, but it's not one. Candy bar has got 240 calories. Built Bar's only got 130. Candy bar's got 30 grams of sugar. Built Bar's only got 4. And a candy bar's got dozens of net carbs, and Built Bar's only got 4 net carbs, plus 17 grams of protein. Absolutely packed. There's so many great flavors to choose from. Coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel. You guys know I always talk about it. I love mint brownie. Many more. In fact, Built is always coming out with new limited time flavors. Check out Built.com to see what's new. Make sure to go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off. That's 15% off with promo code LOCKEDON at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. If you are looking for a way to support the show, I urge you, I beg you, please go to YouTube, subscribe, sign up, do those things.
I think they can also super chat. Have we turned on super chats? I think there's a box we have to check.
I think we have to check that. I will check that for super chats.
And people can start super chatting us.
they'll all be about my football team losing. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen. The NBA trade deadline is Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and the Locked On NBA podcast will be covering it live from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Join Kim Becker, my guy John Corrales, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to get analysis of every blockbuster move. Subscribe to Locked On NBA YouTube and turn your notifications on so you know when they go live. All right, back here on Locked On Nuggets. Adam Mares, I have just one question for you. How much do you love the new look bench with Bones Hyland at point guard?
How much do I love it? Quite a bit. I am infatuated. I am very much in love. No, in all seriousness, I mean, Zeke Naji has been playing really well lately. I know tonight he only 2 of 2, but he's been very confident. He's been very efficient. He's another guy that's very rarely in the way, meaning you're like, man, what's going on? What's he doing right now? Austin Rivers has been playing very well lately. JaMychal Green was great tonight. We're going to get to him. I know Bryn Forbes made some shots tonight, and obviously that makes a big difference when guys are just making threes. But to me, undeniably, the story of this second unit over the last now 6 quarters, I guess, of basketball, really since the second half, they put the ball in Bones Hyland's hands and said, let's see if you can run this team. And I know it's only a New Orleans team now and a Milwaukee team now. The scout, still not out on Bones. He wasn't in the rotation. I'm sure Milwaukee didn't even know, was it going to be Facu tonight? Was it going to be Bones? They put the ball in Bones' hands, and he delivered an A-plus game, in my opinion. An A-plus game against some pretty good defenders. And he just ran that unit well. He got buckets with that unit very well. He shot the 3 very well. He did everything that was asked of him, and that he defended well. He did everything that was important for that second unit. And to me, those other guys all played great. I'm not trying to diminish them the same way I'm not trying to diminish the guys in the starting unit by saying Jokic was facilitating everything. But to me, the story was Bones, the pressure he put on the paint, and the way he was able to run the unit and get everybody situated.
Bones needs the ball in his hands. I think that's pretty apparent. I don't even necessarily think it's that he needs the ball in his hands because he can't do much without it. I think it's more that he needs the ball in his hands because he is the one best suited to have the ball in his hands.
That's exactly what it is.
And look, if whatever happens with the roster building or trades or whatever else, and they get a better point guard that needs the ball in his hands more, then they can figure that out then, and that's a good problem to have. But what they've needed from the bench, Bones Hyland has provided at point guard. Like, he has made the plays. And look, this is one of the reasons the front office drafted him, right? Like, they were like, everyone's going to be surprised at how good of a point guard he can be.
Point guard, yes.
Here he is. Now, there's 2 ways to look at this. And the one is that why the hell did it take Malone this long? And that's a fair question to ask. I do want to stress, though, that if you're somebody that's like, I've been wanting Malone to do this forever, he did it. Like, you've wanted Bones to get the reins, and he's gotten them. So, I think Malone deserves at least some credit for at least, even if it's 45 games in, addressing the problem that's been staring them in the face.
Well, I think an even more important point here, Matt, is that as much as 2 games or really 6 quarters is very impressive, I still think the Bones experience is going to be a roller coaster experience. This was a very good game, but we've also seen him have really bad turnovers. We've also seen him have very bad defensive mistakes. We've seen him look like he doesn't know either the scouting report or the playbook at times. And tonight, we didn't see any of those things. So right now, it's easy. I don't want to sit here and proclaim victory. Oh, there it is. All the problems are solved, because there's going to be nights where you're going to be like, man, what is going on with Bones tonight? But I just think it's worth it. That's the whole thing, is you don't win games like this against Milwaukee, consistently at least, without a competent working group. And tonight, that's what it was in ways we haven't seen all year.
One of my counters for that is, even if Bones has a poor performance, Austin can bring the ball up if necessary. And the other thing is that just having Bryn Forbes as a pure 2-guard shooter, I think has helped a lot too. Him coming off of screens and rolling and honestly, a lot of it is he's been really good at pump faking and attacking when guys have overclosed out on him.
He scares me every time he does it, but yeah, he has a couple floaters.
He's had some mid-range. There's a little bit there. He's not gonna finish at the rim. I'll tell you this though, I don't think he's gonna try either. Forbes is not gonna pump fake and then be like, I'm gonna try and take on Rudy Gobert at the rim, right?
I will say this. In 21 minutes, he took the second most shots tonight, and I'm not at all surprised by it. It's not a problem. He went 6 of 10. I'm just saying, you said he's not going to shoot ones he's not supposed to. That guy's on the court to look at the bucket at all times, and it's fine.
No.
It's fine.
I say he's not going to shoot layups. Let's be very clear. he might shoot contested mid-range shots.
Yeah, because you said he's done a good job of blowing guys away. The one thing I'll say is once he takes the dribble inside the free throw, like outside in front of the 3-point line, 80% chance it's going up. Just like he's shooting. He's a gunner. He's not. His stat line is very on point tonight, in that he had a bunch of points and 1 assist and nothing else.
But for me, that's better because at least it's a little bit of a threat and it can prompt the defense to react, I think.
I also think it's easier for a young point guard like Bones to know, like, hey, this guy's out here for one thing. Like, I don't need to worry about, does he need a touch? It's like, hey, he's the gunner. He's open, shoot it. If not, it's okay. He's spacing the court.
So no minutes for Facu the last 2 games.
Well, no, he played in the first half.
Sorry, first half.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying 6 quarters.
What do you think that with how they're playing, he can be integrated into that unit or no?
Here's the thing, because I was actually texting with somebody today, just some thoughts about this after the game. I think from a skill set perspective, you could probably have put him in where Austin Rivers was today or Bryn Forbes, and I don't think it would have made a huge difference just in terms of like if his job was to be a fully off-ball guy. The problem is we've seen Bones and Facu together. Bones becomes like he just doesn't touch the ball. Facu becomes the guy and this or that. So my answer is no. Keep him out. I think it changes the entire dynamic. I think this is the unit. This wasn't a good fit for Facu this year. This has been a really, really bad year for him, and it was a really bad, series of guys to play him with, and that's okay. You've got a unit right now that makes a lot more sense. There'll be some ugly nights. I really do. I'm just trying to prepare people. I love Bones. I think he's fantastic. There's going to be a few nights going forward where you're just like, what the heck was that? But that's just what happens with rookies.
I think here's the thing. If you have a night where Bones is bad, Austin doesn't hit shots, and Bryn can't hit shots, then yeah, it's going to be bad.
It's going to get bad.
What I like about it now is like that rotation now, like again, with the looming, hey, Jamal's coming back at some point, so you're going to add Monte into those 4 guys off the bench, is that as long as if Forbes hits shots, you can keep the bench under -10. If Austin hits shots, you can keep the bench under -10. If Bones hits shots, you can keep the bench under -10. Like all you have to do
one guy
is keep it under -10. That's all you got to do. And on most nights, Jokic is going to get that starting unit, and the starters are playing well too. Like I don't want to make it seem like it's Jokic and trash. Like Aaron and Will play great tonight, but Aaron's been playing great. That unit is going to be +10, +15, +20. You're going to win the game. All you got to do is not blow it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
And having 3 guys that can just and this is one of the things I've thought about is you don't even necessarily have to have good shots. There's a lot of NBA teams that don't have that their second units don't create great offense, but they have enough guys that are like they'll make a couple threes. They'll get by. It won't be a 5-minute run where you score 0 and the other team scores 15.
Right.
That's all you got to get to.
So the Bones thing, I think we both agree he was really good, and to me, it's worth giving him a runway. Like I just hope it's not, Minnesota has a bad game. Like okay, let's shake it up again. Like I hope there's a little bit of cushion here for. He clearly changes the dynamic. The ball in his hand is very important, so let's not try to play him with other point guards and play him off ball. It's very clear that his talent. I mean, he had some great passes today. It's just great reads with the ball. So don't disrupt that. But what is interesting to me, Rivers, Forbes, whatever, I thought those guys were fine tonight. They were good. Zeke Naji and it's been Zeke Naji and DeMarcus.
This is a bummer. I like Forbes.
What's that?
You don't like Forbes. He had a good game. He's had a couple of really good games. I can tell.
He's fine. This wasn't a negative thing. I will say when the Monte does go back to the second unit, I think Bones is going to be. I would much rather see Bones in that lineup with Forbes as like the guy that could fill in there than Bones being taken out of the rotation. So that'll be an interesting thing bridged across when we get there. But we can deal with that later. The thing that's interesting to me is Zeke Naji has looked really good at the 4 alongside DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah.
Tonight, Zeke Naji at the 4 with Bones. I say you have to have somebody that puts pressure on the paint. Boogie has been doing that, even though he hasn't been converting. He's been putting pressure on the paint. Tonight, Bones Hyland got into the paint when he wanted to, including a couple really nifty scores, drop-offs, and all that stuff. And JaMychal Green, I thought, was fantastic too. The one, to me, I'm curious to see what a Zeke J. Mike lineup looks like in the front court. And I hope we don't lose it. But Zeke is the guy that I'm worried might get squeezed out, and I don't think he should be because I think his spacing is actually really good, and he's low mistakes.
I agree with that too. Austin Rivers, Zeke Najee, Bones Hyland. It's 123 minutes in 15 games, which is that's not a big sample, but it's also 15 games is not a tiny one either. 118.5 offensive rating.
It's really good.
105.8 defensive rating.
That's insane. Unsustainably good, but it's really good.
They've been quite good in that spot. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. And when we come back, we'll talk about Jokic being named All-Star. We'll talk about what this just says, which is I like to hear you guys talk about the Jokic quote about looking up to Giannis and wanting a title in Denver. We'll talk about the Western Conference playoff race and how the Nuggets can get the title and how things are breaking right.
Things have broken really well for Denver, not just them winning, but other teams losing in a way that's been like, it's been a big week.
And we will talk about, I will let you, Aaron.
I agree with this, by the way. I agree with this.
I think Bones is a sneaky okay defender for a rook. His arms really pop.
Yeah.
I'm not there. Maybe I'll get proven wrong. I'm not there with the things I pay attention to, but that's okay. We'll do all this. We'll talk more about this when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the best way for you to support the show. Please, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it, just take a second and do it. Just we're a big part of your lives and you're a big part of ours. Help us out. Somebody in the chat wants to know if this is a periodic table chart that I'm wearing on YouTube. And it is, except for this little guy here. You'll see him popping up right here. Yeah, that's because he's the element of surprise. So back here on Locked On Nuggets, wrapping up after a big weekend with the Nuggets and Jokic and the bench and all these things. Adam, Nikola Jokic was named an all-star starter last week, and we never got around to talking about it because it's just kind of like of course he's gonna be an all-star starter. Like he's Joker. Like he's Nikola Jokic. Like of course he is. I thought before the show about the conversations you and I had watching him his rookie season and early on arguing on the press bench about him and like what his ceiling could be, and to see where he's at, where I'm now like, oh, of course he's an all-star starter. Of course he is.
I mean, there was no question about it.
Not only that, he got a ton of votes, like a huge amount of votes. He was, I think, he third or second in the Western Conference front court.
Oh, he's second behind only LeBron, and it was like a big cushion.
I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if Wiggins got more than him because of the
yeah.
But your thoughts on Jokic again being named an all-star starter and getting this popularity surge?
The popularity surge is really interesting. I mean, I think the MVP bump has done a lot. I do think more people are interested in him than maybe are given credit. Because, Matt, another thing we didn't talk about, but tonight's game was opposite NFL championship games. And it featured the MVP and the former MVP. And I just look at this.
Finals MVP.
The reigning MVP and the previous MVP and also finals MVP and reigning champion. And I just look at this and I go, it's insane to me how poorly the NBA markets these two players, both Giannis and Jokic. And I'm sitting here thinking, let's look at the vote, because maybe they say, well, yeah, people aren't interested. The votes don't reflect that. The votes reflect that actually people are like, this dude's awesome. The highlights don't reflect that. The other day, Michael Malone said Jokic isn't sexy. I think people think Jokic is sexy, his game. I think they look at this and they go, yes, people love dunks and they love the power and all this stuff. But I think the highlights of Jokic passing have become like one of people's favorite things in the NBA. So I look at that number and I say it's very meaningful. He's very popular, and the NBA needs to pull their head out of there. You know what? And start marketing this guy properly, because he is must-see TV if you like basketball.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Funny.
Yeah,
Mate, I think
they had on Saturday, they had the brawl of the Brooklyn Nets versus the Draymond-less Golden State Warriors, and some of that's injuries, right? Like fully healthy, that's a pretty power-packed game. I'm just saying, you are right though. Putting this game up against, like, they're like, we put it on ESPN, sure, opposite the NFC Championship game.
Nobody watched this game, Matt. Nobody watched this game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So absolutely. And more people should, honestly, because I'm of the opinion tonight that no one should ever watch football again, ever. Like, no one should ever watch any football of any kind, as long as I certainly won't be watching football ever again. So I do want to kind of go back to this because somebody asked that you mentioned this before we went to break, and it was Joe Broussard in the comments said, I'd like to hear you guys talk about the Jokic quote about looking up to Giannis. And he talked about how the international guys have a real appreciation for one another because they know the experience. And he also mentioned that, like, you know, he's like, of course I want to do what he did in Milwaukee, in Denver. And it is, I think it's an interesting question. You know, Harrison noted tonight that the Bucks were doing like Serbian Heritage Night, and like the Nuggets have never done this, and that's actually kind of embarrassing. So like I was like curious, so like I looked up, and it's like there's like 150 families in Denver that have Serbian heritage, and then in Milwaukee it's a much higher number, which is not surprising. And Harrison's response, which was I think fair and accurate, was like, regardless, like even if it's you're not necessarily having like a big Serbian population, just to recognize how big a part Nikola is and how much he cares about Serbian culture, that like kind of sign. The reason I bring this up is just there's still like a lot of growth. Like there's still a lot of moments, I think, for Nikola and the franchise to go through. And it's been a really fascinating story so far, but there's still like a lot of story to tell too.
Yeah, I'm curious if he would like that or not. I don't know. It'd be an interesting conversation to have. Like, hey man, what can we do? Can we hand out little Serbian flags or something? Or is there towels with the Serbian flag on? Is there something? Would he appreciate that? I honestly don't know. You know, it was cool. I don't know if I don't know what Milwaukee's thought process was behind doing that. My guess is that they knew they were going to have a bunch of Serbians at the game tonight to watch Jokic, so they thought we'll throw a bone there. I don't know. Maybe it was a nice little recruitment tool because they want to try to pursue him. I really don't know the answer to that, but I just don't know. I'm curious what Jokic thinks of that because he doesn't seem he doesn't seem like a guy that cares about all of those things out, you know, in other similar things to that. So I don't know if that means a lot to him or not.
In other news, the Western Conference playoff race has shifted quite a bit.
Big story.
Last week. So there's a couple of things to kind of go over here. The big picture is there's now, in my opinion, for the playoff race, there's 3 tiers. It was like the Suns and the Warriors and the Jazz, and then the Grizzlies were like a little bit behind them. And now it's just the Suns and the Warriors at the top. And honestly, the Suns are kind of on their own. They got a 4-game lead in the loss column. And there's a break. And you got the Grizzlies at 17 losses. And then you got a little bit of a break. And now all of a sudden, the Utah Jazz, after falling to 2-8 with a loss to the Timberwolves on Sunday night, the Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks are clumped together at 4-5-6. The Nuggets are tied in the loss column for the 4th seed in the Western Conference. They also have a 5-game lead in the loss column over the Los Angeles Clippers, a 4-game lead over the Minnesota Timberwolves, and a 6-game lead over the Los Angeles Lakers. For those of you new that are joining and are about to be inundated for the next 3 months with my playoff talk, the reason we talk about loss column and not games back, you can make up wins, you can't make up losses. Losses are what they are. So,
can you see that now?
I can't see that. Wow, look at you. This is technology showing the ESPN standings page.
There we go.
Here on the YouTube page, if you want to see what the standings look like, because you definitely can't go down your own web browser as you listen to this.
It's a handy. I'm trying to help people out here. I'm trying to visually represent
the production value. It's a good job, buddy. So like, look, the Nuggets are officially now in the race for not only a top 4 seed, but I am telling you, like, as much as Memphis keeps winning games, and don't get me wrong, loving it, the Grizzlies are very likely to start losing at some point. That there's probably going to be a regression, and there's a bunch of indicators that probably say Memphis is going to take a tumble.
I think they have one of the easier schedules in the NBA. So, what did I just do? Look at this. We're moving around, trying things out here. Having a little bit of fun.
You're making me dizzy.
So Memphis might have an easier schedule than people realize going. So I don't know if they're going to fall. I think Denver's going to have a hard time catching them in the standings.
I'll just tell you, I think it's even with an easy schedule, especially with Denver having one of the easiest in the league. I still think that there's an opportunity there, and if nothing else, I think there's a chance that it winds up being a multi-way tie. We'll note the Utah Jazz do hold tiebreaker over the Nuggets, despite no matter what happens later this week. But the Nuggets can get a game on them with that final game of the road trip. I don't know. The Clippers, I think, are in a pretty tough spot. Like they're out. It's honestly impressive that they're still 26-26 without Kawhi and PG.
Very impressive. I think Clippers to me are the biggest sleeper in all of this. Like if they get their guys back, which is a big if, but to me, to be 26-26 right now, better than the Lakers, given what they've had to face. They're a team that I think they're going to be the play-in team. But if they get the 7 or even 8 seed, I feel bad for Phoenix or Golden State that's a first round, because I think that's a tougher matchup than a lot of the teams that are sort of ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean that's like the nightmare scenario for Phoenix is like Phoenix winds up with a 1 seed and somehow the Clippers like lose the play-in tournament, but they get PG the first game, but PG and Kawhi come back and it's Phoenix versus Clippers. That's a nightmare for Phoenix.
Bummer.
Like to be that good. Now they'll be like it's fine, but pretty interesting there. Lakers 2 games back of the Wolves, 1 game back of the Clippers in the loss column. Still reeling. LeBron out now. Got some swelling. That's bad. More news tonight. This is unfortunate. Joe Ingles suffered a what by all accounts is a very serious knee injury, and that's going to probably be it for his season with the Jazz unless they get a really favorable.
How big of a deal is that to you?
It's significant on 2 levels. One, he anchors their bench unit so that they can stagger effectively and just run pick and roll with Gobert without Mitchell. And 2, he was their biggest trade chip. They had talked to Boston about Josh Richardson. I know that they had talked to Atlanta. They had talked to Sacramento. Like they had been shopping Ingles pretty aggressively, and to Dallas as well, trying to pick up a wing to help them on perimeter defense. And so, losing Ingles, I do think is, even though he's been less than he has in previous seasons, there we go. I still think that's kind of a significant loss. I'll just say and here's the thing. I'm really concerned on one level because I remember last year being like, man, the Nuggets are surging, and then right. Things are shaping up well. They still have to maintain it. They got to win the games. They got to stay healthy. Like all those things are still true. You've still got it is the end of January. You got all of February, all of March, and half of April. Right? You got 2.5 months of basketball left before the playoffs, but there's definitely a window. The Nuggets have, I think I am willing to say that they have weathered the first half of the storm. Like all the stuff that the first
Nuggets?
half threw them. Yeah, the Nuggets got through that
I'm
stuff.
telling you, weathering it is almost an understatement now. And a lot of it is just this run that they're on. But to be as comfortable as they are right now, their schedule gets pretty easy after this, Matt. Like if you look at it, they have 2 more road games, obviously, and they're back-to-back. So that's going to, that's tough. But their schedule gets pretty easy.
It drops into like almost all home games. It drops into mostly games versus teams where they'll be favored. It's home games versus opponents where they'll be favored. There's you look at the schedule and you're like, oh, well, that's a tough game. And that's a tough game because when they do, if they don't play bad teams, they play really good ones. That's what the rest of the schedule looks like. It's either highlighted national TV, big games, or it's teams that they should definitely beat. And so there's a real surge here.
I got another window to share here, which is my favorite app, Positive Residuals.
I do.
His fantastic app here. This is the Nuggets from right now going forward. The second easiest schedule right here in the NBA. Only Indiana has an easier one from them. And you look at it, 19 home games to 15 away. By the way, that you're going to play 2 more in a row. Actually, it's actually 14 because this is actually today they played a game, so I have to update this. So 19 to just 14 away games, 2 more, so they'll be at 19 and 12. And then just against again, a lot of the teams that they're going to be playing are below 500. So it's
how many back-to-backs is on that?
5. Back-to-backs. 5, and then they play.
But think about this: they've got the back-to-back versus Utah this week. They've got Celtics Raptors next week. I'm sorry, in 2 weeks. That's right before the All-Star break, the 11th and 12th. After the All-Star break, they have 3 back-to-backs left. That's it. That's phenomenal. compared to the rest of the league. So they're in a really good spot of the schedule.
Look at this though. Lakers hardest.
Yeah.
Trying to look at what other team. Golden State, one of the hardest ones.
Golden
Clippers,
State's
one of the
got a really
hardest
hard
ones.
Yep.
So you got some over there.
There's a window. So we'll see what happens. I know the Nuggets are still continuing to look at trade options. I've talked about this. I mentioned this last night that they had kicked the tires on Jalen Smith with the Suns alongside like 10 other teams. So I don't expect that trade to happen. But I think it's really, after a season that's been, I think, really difficult for even some of the most ardent fans to be excited about it. There's a little bit of spark. There's a little bit of surge coming.
Yeah, I agree. And you get some players, some reinforcements on the way. I'm very optimistic about where the Nuggets are. I mean, obviously championship stuff is still so hard, but I feel like the Nuggets are starting to look better than we've seen at the exact perfect moment where it's like, awesome. They have an opportunity to make a real run here.
I'm glad they're not bumming you out anymore. That warms my
By
heart.
the way, Lakers really struggle. You mentioned Utah. I think the Ingles thing is huge, mostly because I think he was going to be traded. So now you lose the big trade chip. They don't have it makes it really hard for them to make a positive value trade at this moment. There might even be a little bit of a have an experiment now to make sure their secondary lineups work, which could have them slump a little bit. Quinn Snyder just tested positive for COVID. And we know how it was with Michael Malone when he was gone. That was a real loss when you don't have your head coach. So there's that.
Less Ingles is more Jordan Clarkson.
Right.
So that's part of it.
And then LeBron, knee soreness, the team losing like they have, I look at it and I go, you know what? Denver is starting to elevate themselves away from that second pack to where you're like, okay, they're starting to get closer to the contenders than they are the fray.
Before we get out of here, I'm just going to go ahead and open the floor. Does anybody in the chat or you just want to go ahead and pile in on a miserable day for me? Just
what happened, Matt? What happened? Is everything okay? I didn't even check the score. I just saw the Chiefs were killing the Bengals. They were up 20. What was it? 21 zip or what was it? I didn't see.
It's 21-10.
I just assumed they won. Isn't that what happened?
No, they did not win. They lost the football game. I live bet Bengals
emotional hedges are great, man. Emotional hedges.
I made a lot of money today because I emotional hedged the hell out of it.
This is a great time, people, though, to make up for it. We know we got some 1-star reviews. It's not too late to go and change it. You can now go change those 1-star reviews and say, you know what?
I, a Chiefs fan, am miserable. Everyone hates my team and is happy they lost. Browns fans were rooting against my team in favor of a division rival.
What?
Cowboys fans were getting in on everyone was thrilled that my favorite football team lost in overtime in agonizing fashion,
it really was
suffering a horrific collapse. So I'm just going to let that out there.
Can I say one thing? It's actually not about the Chiefs, though. The Cronkies are headed to the Super Bowl. The Avs are the best team in hockey. The Nuggets are on the upswing. This is things are kind of shaping up for the Cronkies. There's a brightest timeline for the Cronkies in 2022. I don't know how much people care about that, but it's at least interesting to see that at this very moment, the Cronkies have what appear to be the best team in 2 sports.
I have a lot of friends in St. Louis, and they are.
That's rough.
Yeah, they're not having a great day. So, but yeah, I will say, and hey, maybe their teams will wind up back on television. That could happen in the next month or so. So.
That actually is supposed to maybe happen here in a month and a half. So maybe everything really is coming up roses now.
You know what's funny on that is because we couldn't get altitude. I just I cut Comcast and just switched to Hulu because I was I don't want to get charged for all these channels I'm not watching.
Yeah.
So I'm satisfied with Hulu, but the problem is my wife is the most hardcore Avalanche fan.
That's awesome.
In the world.
The Avs are so cool, man.
She chews macaroni, hard macaroni during games. She goes from a professor that teaches literature to somebody that literally I've had to cover my children's ears so they don't hear what she's yelling at the officials when we go to games. she's nuts. And so if altitude comes back, I'm just gonna have to get right back on. I'm so happy with my choices, but I want for at least for people to be able to see the MVP and McKinnon as well. So okay, man. Exciting week coming up, finishing up the road trip. The Nuggets are home at the end of the week. We got lots to cover. Trade deadline talk will be heating up. We'll have more news, all that stuff to do. Keep it here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making this part of your day, making this part of your week. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night with another episode.